I speak of believers who've died in the present tense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say Charlie Kirk was. Is he a believer in Christ? Charlie Kirk is.
Yeah. The old preacher said, I didn't lose her, my wife, because I know where she is.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Welcome to the broadcast. This is Michael Easley in Context and Mike Glenn of Engaged Church Network.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought it'd be important to give you a little reflection, some of our thoughts on the Charlie Kirk assassination, as well as in the aftermath of this incredible memorial. We just looked up how many views total?
13 million or a billion?
I think it hit the billion.
Yeah, worldwide billion.
Globally.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of interesting discussions, Mike, on this whole thing. And I thought it would be important for you and me, since we kind of work together in some of your ministry opportunities in this podcast, YouTube world, just to chat a little bit from our vantage. First of all, let me just toss it to you as far as Charlie Kirk and what you've observed over, you've worked with young adults for a long time.
Right.
And this guy's dialed in some unique ways.
It was interesting to hear how many people did not know Charlie Kirk and were not aware of the work that he was doing or the impact he was having. This issue that we talk about a lot about how lost our young men are, he had dialed into that and was a mentor, teacher, coach, life example for millions of these guys. And it's been interesting to see their grief expressed. And this is what you did to our leader. Whole nations get into trouble when there are young men who are lost, as we have a generation of lost men are. So that was the first thing. When people say, man, I didn't know Charlie Kirk. How could you have not known what this guy was doing? The second thing is the hatred that you don't have to agree with him, but you could at least say, hey, I'm sorry, this husband and father and all of this, our world should not be this way. But there were a lot of people who said, well, he got what he deserved. Well, I'm trying to think of what he would have said that deserved the death penalty.
It's fascinating, some of the disadvantages or the downsides of social media, the truncation of information.
Right.
That you can say anything, it's unverifiable most of the time. And a lot of the traffic we see of him being called racist, misogynist, Christian nationalist, etc. If you watch his clips, you don't find that. Back to your first point, though, my youngest daughter, who's 30, out of the blue, sent me a message through Instagram that she listened to Charlie Kirk every morning.
Right.
I was floored. And to your point, we're old guys, and I think there is a generational differentiation of how people interact. What do you think it was about him that the younger people dialed into?
I think there was a couple of things. One, he was kind of laid back. He was kind of funny. He didn't seem to take himself too seriously, and would talk to anybody, which was always a fascinating thing when you get those YouTube roles from Charlie Kirk, because he'd be on some college campus, prove me wrong, you disagree with me, will you come to the front of the line? Yeah. And even when the people around them would boo a point that was being made, he would shut that down. No, that's not what we're about. We're here to have this open kind of conversation, and why won't you even talk to me?
Larry, is it Arn Hillsdale? I don't know if you saw his little 4-minute blip he gave at the celebration of life service, whatever we want to call it. I did not know this, and I suspect most people didn't, but apparently he went to see Arn when he was late teenager, and he had not gone to college, as people know. But Arn kind of almost wire brushed him a bit and said, well, you're going to have to learn, and it's going to cause suffering. For you to learn, it's going to get up early, stay up late. You need to read the Bible. You need to read classics. And they had a few exchanges, And he found out later that Charlie had finished 31 online courses.
Was a big disciple of Hillsdale online courses and had read everything.
Yeah.
And was always reading. I find it interesting how many people counted on Charlie. And now they're angry because whoever you is, shot our guy. And our guy died. And now they are angry but don't know what to do with it or don't know
displaced.
Yeah.
It does seem, and you've seen the social media, the George Floyd burn things down, riot, destroy property, and then the picture of the assembly. And that may be a little disingenuous, but it does show a point. There's been no looting. No. There's no, firewalls pillaging the streets or no blockades put up. And it does beg a deeper question. One of the thoughts I had, Mike, this week was when Christ was doing all these miracles, he had enemies that no matter what he did, they found a way to criticize it. He does it from the power of Beelzebub. He blasphemes. And in a way...
He doesn't wash his hands before he...
dines with sinners. Touches an unclean person. And you have to sit back and go, not that Charlie Kirk's Jesus, but here's a guy doing a lot of good, a lot of wholesomeness, and yet the vilification is quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that all of us need to remember is that this is what Jesus said would happen. The shock of some Christians who thought, well, because you follow Jesus, you can always find a parking place at Walmart. But this is what Jesus said would happen. You see how they treat the shepherd. Don't expect anything different if you're one of my sheep. And for all of the things we know about Charlie, he was very open and persuasive about his faith and made the case in the public square. This is what Jesus said would happen.
There almost seems to be, and even setting aside Christianity and conservatism, if anyone is really successful in any area, there are a fringe ragtag group of critics that are going to hate no matter what.
Yeah, well, and I know that if an addict starts getting sober, it's the family that tries to destroy them.
Interesting,
because if you get well, then everybody in your family's got to address their own issues and get well. If you still in your addiction, then they can always blame you. Our family would do great, but so and so's all in their mess. But when you start getting straight, then everybody has to get straight, and rather than get straight themselves, they'd rather you fail. So, see, the very thing that you have a Charlie Kirk who, and the stories of him talking to people when he was 17, 18, walking up to people, getting appointments with them, and finding out what he needed to do to build what he wanted. He started Turning Point at what?
19?
19?
Yeah.
I think it was 19. But he'd already done his research from the time that he was 16 or 17. The idea that you could do that and have and gain a major platform, well, does that mean you could do it too? Does that mean I could do it?
There's a jealousy.
And now he's out there. He did it.
Well, in your and my world of pastoring and church size, there's always that guy out there that's bigger, better, newer, got more whatever. And
not near as good as you are. That's a shocking thing.
And you go to a conference and we parade the celebrities, the successful, the authors, the big radio programs, whatever, the televised programs. And so that, I think, it engenders, even among believers, it engenders a jealousy.
Sure.
And so you can criticize. One of the things that you and I have talked about before, and I want to be kind to my brothers and sisters in Christ, but there's a bell curve of evangelicals, Reformed, more fundamental, more liberal, not to the fringes where we would say, no, there's some false teaching going on, but just within this bell curve of tension.
Right.
And one of the things they accuse him of is ecumenism, that this event was ecumenical. And you do find a vein of that. The other vein that I've observed are the Christian nationalists, both pro and against. Let's start with sort of it's too ecumenical. When Promise Keepers was around,
right, it was too ecumenical.
I knew pastors that would have nothing to do with it because it was too ecumenical, and they were charismatics, and they were whatever. We can't be a part of that, and that's been a tension with Billy Graham crusades.
Right.
Your thoughts on that from our 40+ years looking at it? What do you do with this criticism of this?
Well, when I started, the only thing I had to do was be better than the other pastors in my little town.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And now you're actually competing against everybody everywhere because of the social media platforms. The other thing was, and I tell people this, when I was dating, my mom said, "Don't date outside your faith."
Okay.
Okay. She meant, don't date somebody who's not a Baptist. Now, that's what my mom meant, all right? I sit down and tell my boys, don't date outside your faith. I meant Christian.
Right, a believer.
Yeah. A nice Presbyterian girl would be fine. Okay, the world has changed so much. We used to have the luxury of arguing among ourselves. Now we don't. Yeah. And if you let something happen to the Presbyterians down the road, sooner or later it's going to happen to you. If you don't stand up with the Methodists down the street, then it's going to happen to you, or the heaven forbid, the non-denominational guy, who's doing all the radical things like feeding the poor and traveling around the world.
Dr. John Hanna would say, if you go to war, you take anyone who'll go with you.
That's exactly right.
And I spent some time in Nigeria, and they had the Catholics, the Baptists, ECWA, Evangelical Churches of West Africa. They had a group called Deeper Life that was sort of a split of the Anglican charismatic group. They had Episcopalians, but because the Islamic factions against them, killing them, burning their churches down, jamming tires over them, filling them with petrol and burning them in front of their churches, they were ecumenical.
That's right. You just didn't have that luxury.
Yep, they didn't have us versus them. It was like, okay, we're on this side of the ledger. Is there a place for a line where you as a Baptist, me as an evangelical Protestant pastor would say, I don't associate with a group?
Probably, but it would be the kind of thing, hey, I'll do these 3 things with you, but I won't do the 4th.
Is there another tension I faced, because I had to be involved in certain things, was can I go and proclaim the clarity of the gospel? Can I proclaim what I believe, not compromising my conviction?
Right.
The chaplaincy program in the military used to be conviction without compromise.
Right.
Now, it had to change because they started letting anyone come under the umbrella of a chaplain or a ministry.
Right.
And but you're right that add social media, the flash paper of instant communication of misinformation, it's a lot more tenuous. One of the things I've always been struck by, I call it Paul's ecclesiology. In the pastorals, he tells Timothy, Thessalonians, preach and teach these things. This is what we're going to do. But in Philippians, there's this fascinating passage, and he talks about his persecution. And I want you to know, brethren, that my circumstances have turned out for the greater progress of the gospel. So he's leading with this, but he says, there's some to be sure, are preaching Christ even from envy and strife, also from goodwill, but the latter do it out of love, knowing that I am appointed for the defense of the gospel. The former, meaning those who preach Christ from envy and strife, the former proclaim Christ out of selfish ambition rather than pure motives, thinking to cause me distress in my imprisonment. What then? Only in every way, whether in pretense, I love this, or in truth, Christ is proclaimed, and in this I will rejoice. Yes, I will rejoice. And I love the bookend of Timothy. When we plant churches the way we do it, we're going to teach sound doctrine, prescribe and teach these things. But if people do it, I think one translation says out of contempt, I'll still rejoice.
That's right.
And so when I see an event like that, and some of those voices, maybe they don't really believe what they're saying at the memorial service, and I suspect some didn't. They had a good speechwriter. But Christ was proclaimed.
Right. Right. You know, I was telling somebody the other day, they asked me, you know, what was your favorite sermon? I said, I gave up trying to figure out what a good sermon was. Because, you know, same with you, I came up with a Sunday morning sermon that was a work of art. Okay, this thing was beautifully crafted. The words were all in the right place. This thing needed to be under glass somewhere, right? And I would preach it. Crickets. Would not hear the first response back. Nothing. And then there would be another sermon where the paper fell off the podium and everything else, and that would be the one where people would stop you in the grocery store and go, hey, you know, when you said
message,
that, man, my wife and I are still talking. So I gave up trying to figure out what a good sermon was. Yes, Christ is proclaimed. And there were several times during Charlie Kirk's memorial service where the gospel was proclaimed. We don't care how it gets there.
Well, and so in my story, when I came out of Catholicism, not that a person can't be a believer in Catholicism, I wasn't. Mm-hmm. And when I came to Christ out of Catholicism, the clarity of that message, it was so crystalline. Later on, the man who shared it with me didn't believe it. It's like if the rocks, will cry out. And I've always wondered at the Lord's sense of humor and his economy of grace that, you know, he'll use Balaam's ass. He'll use some unlikely method to communicate truth. So if I hear a particular person saying all the right words, that's why I was thinking about this passage, Mike, because even if you didn't believe it, he's preaching the gospel.
It's the same, yeah. The truth is the truth.
Turek and Rubio, and I have heard, I don't know, that Rubio's Catholic. Mm-hmm. Rubio's articulation of the gospel was probably the best I heard, and I watched 5 hours of the service. It was incredibly well delivered.
Concise.
Yeah.
Dead on it.
Producers were happy about that.
Now, while we're watching this, and you and I do have the advantage of some mileage. You know, everybody's telling us this is a turning point. We've had several turning points.
Right.
You know, I was in third grade when John F. Kennedy was killed.
Yes.
That changed everything. It was a little later when Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. That changed everything.
9/11?
9/11 changes
Pearl Harbor
everything.
had to have
Pearl Harbor.
Before us,
you know, in my early churches, heaven forbid if you did not stop near December 7th and remember Pearl Harbor, because at that time, most of the men in there had served somewhere.
Yes, or family members had lost.
Lost people. And so heaven forbid that you do that. Now we're being told this is another turning point. How so? How do you see that?
Well, back to your first comment about people are not aware who Charlie Kirk is. I speak of believers who've died in the present tense. Mm-hmm. I don't say Charlie Kirk was. Is he a believer in Christ? Charlie Kirk is.
Yeah. The old preacher said, "I didn't lose her, my wife, because I know where she is." Right. Yeah.
But I think the younger generation, and let's just pick an arbitrary age, 30 and down. Charlie Kirk had a bigger voice to that age group than you or I do.
Exactly.
In the last 5 or 10 years when we were fully engaged in ministry. That to me is what's the interesting part to watch. Post 9/11, we all saw church attendance spike, and then it dropped pretty quickly. Right. We had the complication where we lived with the D.C. sniper around that time. So we had two things kind of, a lot of tension. But I think culturally, the Barna research coming out of Arizona University, they're showing young men growing in their interest in the Bible and churches.
And coming back to church at greater numbers than women, which is that the first time in history that's happened?
Yes. Well, first time, and we've seen the disassociation, and I think there's a lot of factors: the feminization of the church, wokeism, vilification of a white male.
Right.
All these things kind of, I can't talk about it. Which where Kirk, to me, the genius was he talked to that person with very different views, very different appearance, very angry at him, and there were times he was pretty clever. He did try to shut down some people who were just unhinged. But he had some decorum the way he did it. But I think that's the undertow, my point about my youngest daughter. I didn't know she listened to Charlie Kirk. So to me, the turning point, I think, is going to watch these 20-year-old, watch these college campuses. I saw on a feed yesterday the number of events they're doing back to back to back to back to back to back.
Oh, yeah, they're keeping the Turning Point tour that he was on.
They're selling out.
Yeah.
They're filling up.
And they've got 50 or 60,000
62,000 applications
for new Turning Point organizations.
And let's just say if they do 10,000 or 5,000. Now, the question you're asking, I think, is pertinent. Does it have legs? Will it be a 9/11, or will it be, as far as a blip theologically? I think this is the platform. Social media might be good.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, I'm a 20-something young man who followed Charlie Kirk. Now Charlie Kirk is gone. Okay, in an awful way.
Yes.
In an awful way. Died in front of his family,
on video, for all to watch.
All of that. And this was a man who obviously loved his wife and loved his little girls. And have you noticed in all the pictures of their family, the little girls' faces are away from the camera?
Them. Yeah.
And so you're thinking, okay, this guy is thoughtful about even those kind of details
100%.
When it comes to his family. Okay, now he's gone. Now, do the guys, and I'm particularly talking about the young men, do they hear Charlie's message about self-responsibility and the opportunity to improve yourself and the opportunity to grab hold of a part of the world and make it better? Do they take Hillsdale courses? Do they pick up the reading list and do the self-improvement that Charlie was calling all of the young men who followed him to do?
I think there's a differentiation between Christianity, conservatism. I would even argue between republicanism and conservatism. There's a messy coalition there.
Yeah.
And then to your point, just basic responsibility, get a job, get married, have some kids, be a good person.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ecumenical things we might even say from a larger perspective. It's not just ecumenical mix. It's this weird alignment of Americanism, Westernism, which isn't perfect. But to me, that's where, back to the ecumenical conversation, I think you got to let some of that just simmer.
Right.
When we were in D.C., we had a lot of Christian politicians and military who attended the church. And when they came to church, they weren't congressmen or admiral or general. They were in their shirt sleeves working with the program, with kids attending in the choir. They loved the Lord. And a good friend of mine always used the comment. He goes, "I'm a Christian first, conservative second, and I'm not mad about it." And I love the way he explained that because, so to your and my opining here, I think there's a shotgun going on here with how people are hearing Charlie Kirk.
And all the groups that are claiming him now.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And we could be considered that talking about him right now.
Yeah.
But my comment is more, how do those of us who are not involved with that age group look at it, cheer it on? And last thing, just for time's sake, Christian nationalism. I've had Mark David Hall on inContext 3 or 4 times. He's my kind of go-to for Christian nationalism. And he does a really good job not exposing, but clarifying what these groups are. And there are a lot of subsets within so-called Christian nationalism. Doug Wilson would be the most vocal proponent out of Idaho. He wants to make, I think it's Pocatello.
Yeah.
He wants to make it a Christian city and then a Christian state. He is very clear on
the 7 pillars.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like
He's
that.
a brilliant man. And then you have others that are, not quite as bulldogmatic about the formulas. And then you have others that are against, Christians who are against a Christian nationalism view.
Right.
So your thoughts on some of this?
Yes and no. One of the things that made Charlie Kirk so attractive is that he was standing up for a lot of us. He was taking on the alternative lifestyles. He was taking on wokeism. He was going to the college campus that had voted the Christian organizations off campus, and he was sitting right in the middle of them, and he was taking them on for us in a way that a lot of us wish we could do. We can't think that fast on our feet or whatever. He was really good at that, so he became our champion in a lot of that. But a lot of us don't know how to respond. Not when somebody says, "I don't believe like you do," but when somebody says, "Not only do I not believe like you, but you're wrong, and I'm going to change the way you think. And if you don't change the way you think, then I'm going to destroy your life." And how people have asked, "What's the difference today?" This is the first time in the history of church that we've had sins walk into church and demand to be validated.
Yeah. Not only validated, but celebrated.
Yeah, celebrate. That's right.
You know, it's not just when the Obergefell issue came along. It's not just we want to be married and have benefits. We want you to officiate. We want you to celebrate.
Right.
You will endorse us.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of the Christians that were not quick, maybe like I'm not a quick thinker, and you kind of get back on your heels, go, I don't know what to say without getting beat up.
Yeah. And if you say anything, then so I think the idea that he took him on made him a hero and a champion for a lot of us. And it's going to be interesting. Are there those people who will then take his assassination as an opportunity to do violence?
Possible.
Or to become,
it's possible.
Charlie tried to be nice, you shot him, so we're going to be.
Well, there's always a ragtag element.
Yeah.
The first abortion clinic protest with Rosie Greer and others, if you remember.
Oh, gosh,
there was a ragtag element, and they're just peacefully there. Yeah. So there's always a ragtag element.
Is he a martyr?
I don't like that term. For a lot of reasons.
I'm not comfortable with that term either. I don't know that I've thought through why I'm not comfortable with it.
When we typically say Stephen was the first Christian martyr because he was killed for his faith. One could argue Charlie was leading as a Christian, and he was. Now, did the assassin have in mind? Did those who stoned Stephen have in mind they were killing him for his Christian belief? Mob frenzy in psychology is a fascinating subject,
right?
And why people get stoked up and angry. On the one hand, I could say sure. On the other, I would go, I don't know if Charlie would want to be called a martyr.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to lose sleep over it. You?
No, I just some of the attributes of making him a martyr for Christian nationalism has made me uncomfortable.
Agreed. That's where it gets a little tricky. And back to that point, when we were in D.C., the men and women we knew who were in politics or the military or appointments, I would love to have Christians who run for office, Christians who get in the military of high rank and influence, Christians who are appointed as staff. But that's not the M.O.
Right.
To me, it's wonderful to have good people in those places of service and power. But the gospel and Christ is the king.
Right.
He doesn't share power. Was it Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
He does not share power. And he doesn't. There's one king. Yeah. One king only. He's not. I've often said he's not pacing heaven's floor, wringing his hands about what's happening in America.
No.
And for me, I celebrate all of what he did in the right ways. I mean, I think Kirk had a unique time. If God is sovereign, I'm reading some of the Puritans' use of the word providence. They often talked about in the providence of God. You and I know of a story where a missionary's wife and baby were killed, and he said, my wife was killed by a sovereign bullet.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal 20 years ago. And when I thought about Kirk's assassination, I go, I hope people don't use that language. But the Puritans said, in the providence of God. He allows things. We're fallen creatures in a fallen context. Bad things happen. So in the providence, he knew Charlie Kirk was going to be assassinated. Well, could God have stopped it? That's an immaterial question. The other thing that I would say is, back to Paul's, whether in pretense or in truth, if Christ is proclaimed, I'll rejoice.
Yes.
And so when it comes to nationalism, I get the hair on the back of my neck stand up a little bit. I have, visions of extremists, and I'm like, this is not what Christ called us to do.
No, and it is wrong to mix together, conflate the United States and the kingdom of God.
Yes. Yeah, we're not theocracy.
No.
We have experienced blessing. And even among our bandwidth of evangelical, even put some Catholic friends in here, they would have a different view on America.
Right.
We would not have a universal agreement. And this is why I think it's so important to come back to Christology. Who is Jesus Christ? King of Kings. There is no other.
No.
And, I was thinking back, Billy Sunday, D.L. Moody, all these legends, Billy Graham, when they were at their pinnacle, there was often comments about who's going to follow him.
Yeah.
Who's going to take up the mantle? If you've been to Billy Sunday's Tabernacle, I think it was empty a week after he died.
Right, yeah.
And yet God, the tension I have, I guess I'm trying to say, is God uses people like Charlie Kirk.
Right.
Kirk. He uses people like Franklin Graham, like Billy Graham, Billy Sunday, D.L. Moody. But we don't. Paul talked about that too. I'm of Cephas, I'm of Apollos.
Right.
Has Christ been divided?
That's right.
And that to me is the tension. And for the young people especially, that be like Charlie.
Right.
We're going to see this. If I have Charlie's courage, Charlie's kindness. Last thing I want to say, and then your final comments, the ad hominem arguments to me are what I think all Christians have to watch, and you pointed it out. If I attack you for your belief,
right,
we call it an ad hominem. I'm now attacking the person.
Right.
Dennis Rainey told me years ago, always hold the problem over here. Don't hold it between people.
Yeah, good image.
Because if you're going to attack the person for holding it. And I watched a clip of him talking to a person that was, I think they had changed their pronouns and whatnot, and he never attacked the person. But he held the LGBTQ problem over here. The problem with these labels, this is what that looks like. So anyway, to me, for all Christians, even those that maybe are attacking Charlie Kirk and others, don't succumb to that temptation to take violence and say, I'm going to go fight because Charlie lost. Your final thoughts?
One, I'm incredibly sad.
Absolutely.
I'm just incredibly sad. This guy was 31 years old. And I think back to when I was 31, and how much of my life was yet unlived at 31.
Those two girls.
Yeah, two girls that will grow up with this myth of a father, and but will not have him tuck them into bed and kiss them goodnight and
walk them down the aisle.
And so this grief will continue for their family. There'll come times when Charlie's supposed to be here and he's not. That's incredibly sad. The other thing is, we do believe in the sovereignty of God, and we do believe that under His will and His redemptive process, that people are put in places, used, and then they're done.
Yeah.
Then they're done. And, I take some relief in knowing that in that moment, Christ says to Charlie, you're done. Come home.
Yep.
You're done. Now, what I want from this is I want everybody to take the best from Charlie Kirk. And take courses online. Read every book you can get. Learn how to love people and love the truth. And then be willing, to stand up and fight for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that goes back to your last book about truth and what truth is and isn't. So,
it's tough.
May Christ use you and me and Mike and however our sphere of influence might be. You can learn. You can speak the truth in love. You can have a little more courage to speak up and speak out in a loving way, and ask Christ to use you, not just for a Western American dream of comfort, but to use you for the gospel, for Christ. His mandates to make disciples of all nations, that stands preeminent over the American dream. So God bless you, and as you continue to process through this, get your nose in the book, and don't be afraid to ask some good, hard questions.
Yeah.